And you know what? Hey, Hangout on Air is now live. Welcome, everybody. And I have forgotten my lower third. So evil, and I should have done that ahead of time. And as it was going live, I realized that I'd done that. So let's give me 1 second here, and I will speak to Prophet. All the wrong ones. On the desktop. So just take 1 more second. And we are doing results on a Rampage. Copy and put it here. And there it is. All right, we'll turn it on. Great. Okay, thank you for your patience. We'll go ahead and get started, even though the recording's already started. Welcome to Results on a Rampage. Tuesday night. Today we're going to talk about the tyranny of time. And we're going to talk about some interesting ideas about time and help everybody once and for all end the notion that they are somehow a slave to time. Before I do, I want to give a couple of acknowledgments. First of all, I appreciate you two, Rick and Joy, that are here. I know there's a couple of others that asked particularly to attend either tonight or maybe it's tomorrow, Speed to Profit Marketing. I actually think it was tomorrow, so maybe they won't be here. But anyway, it's all right. Tonight's Results on a Rampage. We just had an earlier interview today on the LA Talk radio show with Barbara Lungay, who's in Tasmania. Spectacular interview. Rick said something earlier before the broadcast started. And if you didn't get a chance to hear that, please, latalkradio.com, find my page, download the one for today. You'll be really excited about that. One of the things that I just found out earlier today, I hadn't been really paying attention to the number of downloads that we had been getting on LA Talk Radio, and we understand now that it's multiple thousands, many thousands per month. I'm really excited about that, and we haven't even been putting them on iTunes. That's going to change this week. Next week we'll get them up. We have a year and a half's worth, and so they're going to be on iTunes and Stitcher, and that probably will double or triple our monthly downloads. So that's really exciting in terms of the reach that we have and the number of people that are participating in the LA Talk Radio interview process and getting the kinds of cool stuff that is there. Barbara talked today about how to create the ability to run your business from anywhere in the world. She's successfully doing that, having been a successful entrepreneur in the wholesaling business of wine, which I don't drink, but not anymore anyway. And she has successfully now created the method to not only run it herself, but to teach others to do the same. And she focused on creating powerful teams, staffing them, and then learning to trust them, and that's her work. So if you missed that, please go do that. Tonight, we're going to talk about the tyranny of time. So let's go to that to start with, and just I want you to think about the question. Okay, I'm going to ask it, and Joy, Rick, if you either want to have comments, that's you free to make them. But the question is this: how often do you say during the day, "I don't have time. I can't get that done. My schedule won't allow it. I don't have time to get that done," or "I wish I had more time," or "My time is wasted," or "Somebody wasted my time," or those kinds of things, where we blame the time travel or the process of time on some external source. So either one of you have a comment on that, maybe the funniest one, where you blame the loss of time or responsibility for time, I guess, somewhere else. Any funny stories come to mind?
Well, I'm not sure how funny it is, but earlier today I was experimenting with a different webcam that I have. I wanted to see if I could make it work with my setup here, and it almost worked, and so I spent a little more time on it, and then it got a little closer, and then I got to a certain point after about an hour and a half, and I said, okay, this is just not going to be acceptable, and stop wasting my time on this project and go back to what I usually use. And I knew I was going to be here tonight, and I thought, this is like Results on a roller coaster. and it was it was irritating and frustrating because I felt like I thought about your guidance about ready, fire, steer, and Okay, when do I turn?
This sounds like a U-turn, right?
Yeah, it sure was.
All right, well, that's a good example. And so here's the point. Anytime we blame an external circumstance, whether it's somebody else or ourselves or the day or that I don't have enough time, anytime we do that, we are actually pretending that time is something outside of us, that time is somebody else's responsibility, basically. Now, there's an author named Gay Hendricks who wrote the book The Big Leap, who gives a really interesting exposition of time. And if you are interested in it, please read the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I'm not going to go into all of the details, but he talks about something called Einstein time and propounds the notion that we are the source of time. Now, I'm not going to go woo-woo and go into Einstein theory of relativity equations, although we could do the Lorentz transformations if we wanted to, but we don't need to do that tonight. And I'm not going to go into his idea about that you actually create time. But I am going to take a notion that is close to that and say that you, I, each of us are responsible for the time that we have completely. And that the notion of blaming time or its use or misuse on something outside of yourself is both irresponsible, ooh, ugly word, is both irresponsible and a cop-out. Cop-out would be if it weren't bad. Irresponsible means you have wasted a precious resource for which you are responsible. Now, I'm not proposing that there's some great time cop in the sky that's going to come and count your seconds and see what you did with them. Maybe there is. Maybe that's, I don't know. I'm not going there. But what I am saying is that each day that goes by, you're responsible for what happens with it. And when I think about that, that's a scary thought for me, okay? And the first thing that we said is end the tyranny of time, stop being a slave to the clock. We are a slave to the clock when we view time as something that has to be divided up among tasks that we have to do. I have a big to-do list, and I have to cut up my day and schedule it tightly to accommodate this big to-do list. I'm going to just discard that notion completely for a minute. Okay, and I'm going to ask you just to suspend judgment and suspend excitement about that for a second. So what happens if you discard that? And instead, you focused on the areas, 1, 2, and maybe 3 things that you knew were your high leverage, high productivity actions. The things that would generate the most leads for you, or generate the most cash for you if you're talking about business, or generate the most return in a relationship if your choice, and I'm going to use that word a lot, is to focus on that relationship. The notion that we don't have a choice is nonsense. So let me give you a couple of practical examples. Okay, so kid comes to dad and says, Dad, I want to play catch. Dad says, son, I don't have time because I need to finish this project. That's a lie. Because if the son came and said, Dad, I stepped on a nail and I have a hole in my foot, you would suddenly have time at the same moment in the same project. And you would therefore choose to fix the hole in the foot, and you did not choose to play catch. You could instead say, son, I need to finish this project first, then we can play catch. That's truth, and it is focusing on the thing that you already think is the most important at that moment. Now, whether or not you're allocating that correctly in relationship and everything, that's beyond the scope of today, and we only have 30 minutes. So I'm not going to get into that discussion, although that's another whole hangout, right, about results in different areas of your life. So the first thing I want to propose, and that you should keep track of if you're trying to get important things from this results on a rampage, is that you get to choose the things that are the most important for your time, for that day. So let's just talk about a day. You can apply the same principles to a week or a month, but let's just do a day for now. Now, the time to make that decision is not in the heat of any battle. It's not in the heat of any urgency or emergency. It is either early in the morning before the hubbub of the day starts, or preferably the night before, where things are relaxed. You actually have a clear view on what is likely to be important, or what you know is important and productive for you. Now so that's the first principle. Take the time ahead of time, and I keep using the word time, but take the time in advance to make the decisions about which three things, so I always use three, which three things are your most productive things tomorrow. Okay? So let me tell you a little story. All of us have created big long to-do lists with 10 or 50 or 100 things on them we know we can't possibly get done, right? And then we scratch off a few of them, maybe, unless the day goes south or whatever, and then we feel like, oh, I got a few things done. Oh, and then the other 90 carry over to tomorrow, and you're busy beating yourself up because I didn't get that done. I'm never going to get this friggin' crap done. And then I have another 17 things to get out of the list. Now it's 107. And you start tomorrow, and you do a few of them, and you scratch them off, and the process just goes on day after day, week after week, month after month. And the only time it takes a break is when you actually take a vacation, and then you know that the list is waiting for you when you get back of whatever it is you didn't get done, and you start over again, right, with the same pile added with whatever accumulated during your vacation. That guarantees your days are miserable. It guarantees you always operate from an energy deficit because you're always feeling behind the eight ball. And I'm going to ask a question that I want both of you to think about and respond to, perhaps. How often have you had the experience of feeling energetically drained just from thinking about the number of things that you have to do? That happen? I see Jay nodding.
That certainly has been a problem for me. I've been consciously working on making it be less, so I don't get tie myself up in knots about it. But yes.
All right. So let me give you a complete and immediate solution you can start with tomorrow. Do not start with the list of things that you have to do. So here's what typically happens with time management. You start with 100 things you know you can't do. Then you prioritize them and you write A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3 by them, and you end up with 40 that are marked A. And you know that that's a week's worth or 2 weeks worth of work anyway. You can't possibly do it. Then you angrily say to yourself, I've got to prioritize better. And then you write A1, 2, and 3 by some of those and further segment, and you end up with 10 or 15 items you know you can't possibly get done. And so you play the very same game I just described to you, only you do it with a slightly smaller list that's still overwhelming, and you congratulate yourself for having scribbled off a few things before you started, but you still play the same game. So let me suggest that you throw it away, or at least that you put it away. And instead, from whole cloth, make a list of 3 things that you know, in a moment of sober reflection, are the truly important things. No more than 3. No, I need 4, I need 5, I need 6, because then you're in the same place. So don't do that or it doesn't work. 3 things. I'll tell you why in a minute. The way we normally do things is what I call the game of attrition, which is where you do things and you try to get it small enough so you can at least choke on it, even though you know you're not going to get it done. I'm going to rename that and call it the game of expansion. If you start with 3 and you know that they're the most important things to that day, and then here's the key, you do them first. And the only exception to that is if you have an appointment that is set at a particular time that involves somebody else or some other thing that you can't do alone. Otherwise, you simply choose to do them first. Now, I don't mean the minute you wake up, because we all have a morning ritual. We shower, we exercise. I have a core 4 that I do in the morning that keeps me centered. It centers around body, being, balance, business. I have some exercise that I do, some spiritual study, some meditation, and some other things that takes me about an hour. So I have a morning ritual that I do, but then I'm set energetically for the day. Now we'll talk about that another time. It's really powerful and it's really important, and I make all my coaching students do it, but this isn't the broadcast for it. So, but when you're done and you're ready to start your day, you take the 3 things and you do them first. Now, 2 things happen when you do that. One, you really are likely to get them done, which means that you create a relationship with yourself of integrity, meaning you do the things you promise you're going to do. That's the first thing. That makes an entirely different place. Think about the last time that you nearly got all of your to-do list done, or you, I don't, heaven forbid, actually got it done, which probably never, but almost did, enough so that you actually started feeling the lifting of the burden and you rejoiced. Think about that for a sec. Imagine that feeling of completion, of integrity, of execution every single day, or nearly every day. So if you do the three things that you say you're going to do, that you've chosen out of all the things you could do to be the most productive and important, and there's day left, you then have a choice. You can drag out a list and pick one more to do, but the attitude about all of that is that anything after the three is extra credit. Now, when we went to school, we all wanted to get extra credit. We want to make sure we got that A, or we got that B up to an A, or whatever it was that we were doing to do, right? So we liked the idea of extra credit, something that we could do that was above and beyond. So if you play the game of expansion, you start with the three things that are critical, and then you add things, if you have time, that are extra credit. If you choose not to, and you choose to do something else, it's fine. You have completed the day. You get an A. Now, this does three things. One, I already said, you get to be a person of integrity because you keep your promises. Two, you get the most important things done, and that means you're leveraging the 80-20 principle. Okay? And then number three, you get to have the glorious win of extra credit if you choose to do extra things that day. So that's the thing I would propose, to stop being a slave to the clock. I wrote down 3 bullets: discover the myth of time, and then there's no such thing as time management, and to create your own time. So let's talk about those specifically. The myth, we talked about the myth of time, which is that it's outside of us. We actually choose all of our own behavior, so we're done with that. The second one is there is no such thing as time management. Look, you and me, we each have 24 hours. The clock ticks just as fast for each one of us, so we're not going to manage time ever. What we're going to manage is our approach to it, how we think about it, how we choose to allocate it, and whether or not we choose to do the most important things first. Okay? Now, before I go on, I want to ask if there are any questions, comments, or additional thoughts about those first 2 things, which is the myth of time, the game of expansion, or the third thing was there's no such thing as time management. Comments or things you guys want to throw in there now?
Well, I have something.
All right, let me mute my mic. Yeehaw! Go ahead.
Well, it's funny because, I think we're conditioned to have these time management tools. Stephen Covey, we've all been through his stuff, and it's all, the urgent, not important, and you have these little tic-tac-toe like boxes, and but what I find frustrating, and I was a project manager in the energy industry, so I know all about time management and deadlines and big projects. So, it's not the amount of things to do or so much that, but it's just that with these types of tools, it always seems that the tool, either learning a new tool, whether it's online or some complicated book or, some sort of system that you have to write notes and A's and B's beside things, it seems like that seems to be, a system in itself, and that seems to take a whole bunch of time and effort and energy, and it's like, I gotta have time to do the time management, and that just sort of seems, it's like I naturally rebel against that. It's like, no, like, why can't it just be simpler than that? And like you said, just have 3 things to do today. Not, I'm going to create a, 45-page website today, but just, in bite-sized chunks, but something, get your, important things done so that at least you feel good at the end of the day. And, feeling good at the end of the day may even include, walking down to the library and hanging out there for an hour. It doesn't necessarily just have to be, the things that put money in your pocket, but it's just those complicated tools I think people are getting tired of, and it just seems like that's almost a substitute for using our brains and other our other resources instead of always looking for some time management BSO. So That's what I have to say.
All right, thank you. I was waiting until your mic was muted so I wouldn't be talking into two, but I couldn't agree more, and I have bought and used, I have purchased and used all of those systems to some degree of effectiveness, and the notion of sharpening the saw and distinguishing between urgent and important things is a key principle, and there's nothing wrong with that. I am suggesting that we have the ability to do that, but that more important, after we've determined those, is the ability to limit the scope of our activities and say yes to the things that are critical. And so, for example, one way to sabotage. So you can make what I've just described to you not work. You can make it not work by saying, well, one thing is build a 45-page website, and two things is record 2 songs and get them ready to release on Repeat, which is my distributor. And the third one is to write a book. Okay, well, I'm going to do all that today, not in anybody's universe. So if you choose to make things that are impossible, you can destroy the system. However, if you choose to think about what's intended here and create high leverage activities that you're going to do for yourself that are the most important, and then you do that urgent, important thing, and it's not with the phone ringing, and it's not with people banging on your door, and it's not with kids yanking on your leg. You think about those things, and you then properly weigh that stuff. This will work for you, and it will create that feeling of completion, which is what I was trying to describe about. So thank you for that comment, and I've had a similar experience in my many years in the corporate universe as well.
Can I make one more comment?
Go, please, by all means, go ahead.
And then I'll let Rick talk. But in a way, it goes in hand with procrastination, because you have this big long list and this complicated system to fill out these sheets and all this kind of stuff, and then you look at it and you think, what a drag. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to, so it's sort of like, it's like you're setting yourself up for that type of disappointment, because you look at it and you think, I just, can't possibly. So then the procrastination sets in, so it just they're all related to each other, I think.
So that's one of the reasons that the piece about integrity is so important, because we do set ourselves up repeatedly for failure, and we do it over and over again by making promises to ourselves that we don't intend to keep. For those of you that saw the old Beauty and the Beast when the candlestick said, promises you don't intend to keep. Anyway, never mind. So that's absolutely true. So Rick, we've kind of monopolized it here. You have a piece you want to add?
When you said leverage, I've thought many times about the integrity part, where I want to feel like I have integrity with myself, that I've accomplished, I've chosen reasonable things to do, and I've accomplished them. But I think it seemed interesting to me when you used the word leverage, and the idea of success, and how that it certainly gives me a feeling, or can give me a feeling, of leveraging myself and gaining momentum.
I couldn't agree more. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I think that's something I think I hadn't thought about before. I've thought of leverage in any number of ways, but I don't know that I've thought of leverage that way, in that context, the way you said it there.
Well, so let's just pick a couple of examples. If you set out just maybe on a Saturday you're going to clean the garage, and lo and behold, it gets done. Or you're going to do a bunch of yard work, and you look at it and you go, I don't know if this is 1 day's or 2 days' work, and you jump in and you get it done sooner than you thought, and maybe it's a little faster. Just that feeling of completeness. All right, and you know what that feels like. You know what it feels like in a project at work. You know what it feels like in a project at home, painting the house, cleaning the garage, mowing the lawn. Doesn't matter. You know what that feels like, and if you have that regularly, we deprive ourselves of that by always lining up 2, 3, 4 times as much as we can do. So we mentally set ourselves up for the feeling, I'm just going to chip away at this pile of crap, and someday I'll never get it done. I know that. Who cares? And that is not the energetic state either to do the most, or to be the most creative. So I'm doing a big project at work. I know I can't get it done. I'm drudging through it, and I can't, boo, and there I go, right? Is that going to be when I'm creative? Is that going to be when I have breakthroughs and I have good leaps of logic and abstract thinking and connection and conceptual power? Of course not. It's when I am free from that, when I'm in a place of regularly allowing myself the ecstasy of completion, as it were. And so you put yourself way closer to, if you want to do the meditation stuff, alpha state and the state of creativity and the state of success and, you know, dopamine in the brain and all of that kind of stuff, which fuels the kind of logical leap thinking where most creative breakthroughs come from.
And that's a very interesting way to look at it, Kellan. And of course, I can throw roadblocks up in my own way on a moment's notice. And part of the reason I'm here, and I show up here consistently, is to let those things just, I know I have an inventory of roadblocks if I need them, but I don't think I need to use them.
That's a good way to say it. So everybody write that one down. We all have an inventory of roadblocks that we know we have. That's like every time we drive through the state of Utah, half of it seems to be under construction. And there's no end to the orange cones and the pieces of cement, you know, guiding traffic across the median to half the other freeway or whatever it is for at least 500 miles of the 400 that the state is high. So anyway, all right, so let's get on to the third one. The last piece is create your own time. Now, if you read Gay Hendricks' book, he talks about, like I said, Einstein time and your own ability to actually create time, and I'm not going to go there. But what I am going to say, I'm not going to say I don't believe it or anything else, because I'm very familiar with, you know, the quantum stuff like that and relativity, but we won't have that discussion right now. But creating your own time is a very interesting phenomenon, and let me give you some examples. If you are worried about something, if you are frightened of something, or if you're uptight, you naturally contract. You withdraw, your energy contracts, you get feeling in the pit of your stomach, you know, you want to withdraw. So the easy feeling is put your hand on the stove, you know, the 2 seconds that it's on there, and that might be a long time, it seems like a billion years. We've all said it. Oh, it seemed like 100 years. I know it's probably only 2 minutes, but it felt like 100 years. That perception or feeling of time expands when we contract. So when we are afraid of something, or something is bad or negative, we contract energetically. Time seems to expand. On the other hand, when you're with something, when you're doing something you absolutely love, like when I'm in a recording studio, okay, so I'll go in the recording studio, start working on stuff. I can be 10 hours later, and it's like, well, what time is it? Where am I? Oh, it's 4 in the morning. Holy moly, I didn't even know that. I can do that and have done it many times. Okay, so so my perception of time completely changes based on my own feeling about what's going on. So again, when you discipline yourself to choose to do the things that you know are the most productive, that are in your zone of expertise, zone of power, or things you may have committed to do, like, so maybe creative things are going to be in my zone of power. Let me give you an example of one that I may decide to do that may not be in my zone of power. So I may say, all right, you know what, I had a struggle in a relationship with a kid, there's some problems there, this may not be in my zone of power, but I'm going to spend some time in it anyway, and choose to do that, not feeling bad, not feeling robbed, not feeling guilty, not feeling anything, but choose to do that. You know, then in all of those circumstances, time changes perception based on our feelings. So when I contract, I feel fearful of something, time seems to grow, and when I feel good about something, time essentially disappears. Time essentially disappears, my notion of its passage, and I can tell you from my own personal, both corporate and professional experience, that staggering amounts of stuff somehow seem to get done, and it's like, oh, I got all that done, and And so it doesn't seem to bear relationship to the time that it took. If you had predicted ahead of time how long something would take, the things you know you're powerful at and enjoy don't match the projected time. So creating your own time is about two things. It's about being aware of that fact and then choosing to do the things you know that you're very effective and highly leveraged at. Leveraged, I'm using that word again, Rick, but leveraged because of your skill. You know that you spend a little time there, you get a lot done because you're skilled. And then doubly or exponentially leveraged because you're going in with this positive vibe, to use a descriptive word, but this positive aura, this positive space around you, which exponentially increases your already superior skill in an area. And so your ability to get stuff done is exponentially increased. And I can certainly, from my own life, tell you, with many examples, both in music and in the corporate world, in doing electricity stuff that I did, that that's absolutely true. So those are the 3 points, and I'll open the mics again if you guys want to talk about that last one, about our perception of time and the notion of actually creating time through the way that we approach things and allocate time. Please do.
The novel thought for me about leverage was the last thing you said, Kellan, about, of course, I have certain skills that I can, where I'm very competent and I can move through things quickly and leverage my skills. That part I know. The novel thought is the idea of leveraging my sense of accomplishment and going into things having already achieved that accomplishment and overcome the inertia and gain momentum, which expands my overall effectiveness. The last thing you were talking about, leveraging myself by starting with the wins.
That's a really good way, starting with the win. And we've talked about, I can't remember, I think we have, energetic inertia, the concept of energetic inertia and comparing it to gravity and stuff. We had that discussion, didn't we, another time?
I think so.
Okay, good. For those of you that didn't see it, let me just do 2 seconds here. We fight physically against gravity all the time. If I want to do push-ups, it's against gravity or my muscles don't grow. If I want to do anything physical, I have to, and I'm grateful for gravity that is my resistance. What I know for sure is that the energetic or the mental world works the same. Anything we're trying to accomplish or do, it is against the energetic inertia or spiritual or mental gravity that exists that pushes back against that. And it is only by overcoming that inertia, just like it is with gravity, that the muscles build, whether they're physical muscles or whether they're mental muscles or relationship muscles or anything else. So there will be, and that's the source of the kind of myth that it's not even a myth, the saying that people say, well, when I finally decide to do something, it seems like the universe is against me and all these roadblocks are in the way. No, that's just the inertia that is, just like gravity, that is in the way or required to be overcome to get the momentum established, Rick, that you talked about, to get yourself moving. So it is simply a fact. And it is energetic inertia, and there is a resistance, just like there's gravity. There is a energetic resistance, for lack of a better, and it's not a lack of anything, that is the right term. There is an energetic inertia that has to be overcome to accomplish anything in the mental or emotional or spiritual realm. Any other comments? Joy, go ahead.
You know, it's interesting with this notion of, throwing out the, your time management tools and, how, we all have the same amount of time. And, when you look at how some people are, they seem to be getting so much done in a day. But look at the things that you really love to do. And that was one of the points also in Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, is that, we get lost when we're doing something that we love. You with music, me with some creative stuff, and time just seems to just, where did the time go? It's like you look at your clock and it's, hours have passed, and it feels like you just started. But then when you contrast that with something that's maybe not so pleasant, you get a phone call and it's this mysterious I can't tell you right now, or you go to a doctor's office, and then it seems like that waiting, it's like you're killing time, and you're just, it just seems like it's hours, and it's just, maybe minutes or something. So it's just interesting how we look at, time itself, and, I'm becoming more conscious of it since reading about that and putting these things in practice, and overall just, choosing how I want to spend my time. I mean, we're free to choose here, and focusing on the things that I like to do. Of course, we all have things that we don't like, taxes, etc. I mean, unless you're a tax person, I guess, or tax man, most people find it a bit of a chore and probably procrastinate. But otherwise, when we get lost in that sort of that world, it's just, it's just really, focusing on, what I want to do. So I found that really useful to go through, that type of exercise.
Great, thank you. All right, well, we've gone over our time and we've covered the agenda that we did. Hopefully people find this useful, and to summarize, it is simply this. You do not have to be, in fact, you must not be a slave to time. You must not give in to the notion that you have to divide your time among multiple unpleasant tasks with a few things that you like to do. If you do that, you'll end up dying with your music inside of you, which is my favorite phrase, probably because I'm a musician. There's lots of ways to say that, but it means the song you came to sing, or the statue you came to carve, or the literature you came to write, or whatever it is you came to do as your primary gift and purpose will remain undone. And finding and executing that for the benefit of yourself and all those around you, in my mind, is the primary purpose of life. And that will include things like being a good dad, raising a family, and all of the kinds of things that we do as normal human beings. I'm not just talking about excelling at some work thing. I'm talking about, in a holistic sense, being the person that the gifts and talents you are given coming here would drive you or lead you to be. So that's really the key here. Think about how you use your time. Think about how you allocate it. Do it mindfully, do it carefully. Play the game of expansion, not the game of contraction. Take back control. Own your time. Take responsibility. Don't blame it outside, and create your results on a rampage in that fashion. Any final comments before we wrap it up? Thank you. Thanks for you attending, you guys. You're great guests and great comments. And hopefully those that watch it later will have a lot of fun and enjoy the show. Thanks very much, and we will see you next time.